This morning, as you just heard, we have as our gospel reading one of the most familiar stories in all of the New Testament. I'm sure we've all heard it many times. It's the story of the tax collector Zacchaeus. And who amongst us really has not heard about him? When I was a boy, a long time ago now, in Sunday school, I tried to imagine the stories when they were read to us. And I imagined Zacchaeus in those days as a kind of whimsical, harmless, a little bit of a goofy person, a goofy guy. But when I see him now, here in my own imagination, after all these years, I see him really very differently. And part of the reason for that is that in the meantime between then and now, I came to learn that the business of tax collection in the Roman Empire was a mean business, and it was done by hard, ruthless people, ruthless men who made their living out of making poor people even poorer than they were. Wherever they went, their touch was a curse, and they left poverty in their wake, week after week, month after month, making people's lives miserable and thinking nothing of it. So now when I think of Zacchaeus up in the tree, I don't see him as whimsical and harmless, a basically nice guy. He seems to me to be a small-minded man now in my imagination, small-minded with hard eyes and hard heart, even though he is trying to catch a glimpse of this famous Jesus. Zacchaeus is not just any tax collector. He is a chief tax collector, which means he is, as it were, the head of a whole raft of hard, cruel people. He is a big dog, as they say now, but I see him as a kind of snake of a person, crooked, greedy, hard man, hungry. Perhaps you've known people like this who are hungry, but they never can seem to get full. People who are looking, but never can seem to find enough of what they want. I imagine Zacchaeus lying in bed at night, rich as Croesus, and still trying to figure out how he can get some more of what he already has enough of. He's the kind of person for whom too much is never enough. And he's also, I think, the kind of person who has long grown used to being thought of as despicable. And indeed, there was good reason for that. Despicable, repulsive. Somewhere along the line, Zacchaeus' life has gone off the tracks. He has lost his way. He's lost his bearings. So he is, in my imagination, as Jesus sees him up in the tree, he's a man who is in trouble, in deep trouble, who is close to the edge of, the worst thing of all, losing his soul. But do you think, if you think about it, if you imagine yourself up in that tree, do you think it would be possible that Zacchaeus is up there looking for something? Maybe he knows somewhere in his heart of hearts that he is lost and that he does need help. Maybe he's like a sailor who is out on the ocean at night in a big storm and gets swept right off the deck, and there he is floating out there in the ocean in the pitch dark, by himself, and his eyes are scanning everywhere, looking everywhere for help, any kind of help from anywhere, somewhere. Maybe Zacchaeus is like that. Maybe he's up in the tree not just casually to catch a glimpse of Jesus. Maybe he is looking for the light. Maybe he is looking for help. Maybe he's looking for something that he needs in the worst kind of way. Anyway, when we hear this story, Jesus sees him up there, and you remember what he says. He says, in effect, Zacchaeus, I want to come to your house today. I want to come into your house. And by the time it's all done, what has happened? By the time it's all done, Zacchaeus is a changed man. He is different. His hard heart, I'm not sure where it went, but it was cracked open by the end of this gospel reading. And this fist that were, squeezing that money so hard for so many years, he finally lets it go. Against all odds, he has become the strangest thing of all. He has become a generous man. He has become a decent human being. And this is a serious question, is that any less of a miracle than walking on the water, or changing water to wine, or stilling the storm? In any event, I really do like this story. I've liked it for a long time, and part of the reason I like it so much is that I feel like we are all of us, a little bit like Zacchaeus. We all have a little bit of him in us. We've all got a little bit of lost in us. We all know what it is to do things that we never should have done and never meant to do, and then never to do the things that we know perfectly well we ought to be doing. We all know what it's like to take a wrong turn somewhere in your life. You try to do the right thing, try to stay on the path, and next thing you know, you're in the weeds. All of us know what it is to need some serious help sometimes and not know exactly where to find it. Most of us know what it is to need to fix up some broken places in ourselves and find ourselves unable to fix ourselves, can't make it right. We might have wounds that we've gathered up over the years, and they need to be healed, but somehow we can't manage to heal ourselves, can't find the healing balm. And we all know what it is to try to find a different way of living, a different way of thinking about ourselves, and having to come back to it again and again and again and find ourselves back on the track again. So my point is that's why we say the confession every Sunday. Because every time it comes time to say the confession, we've got something to talk about to the one who sent us into the world. But another great thing about this story is that Jesus himself, and this is very strange indeed, and it may sound odd to you, but Jesus does not seem in the least bit discouraged by Zacchaeus. And it's not that he doesn't know who he is. Everybody in Jericho would have known who Zacchaeus was and what kind of person he was. Jesus knows all about the things done and left undone and all the self-absorption and the deceit and the thievery that was a part of Zacchaeus' life, but miraculously he seems to look right past it, to look right through it. There is, in this story, there is not what you would expect. There is no admonition, no stern admonition. There's no scolding. There's no hollering about changing your ways. There's no threat of perdition, no threat of damnation. Jesus just says, I must come into your house today. Now, what does that mean? What do you think it means? We say in our tradition that Jesus is the living, breathing, moving image of God. That when we want to know who God is, we can see in him what we need to know. Maybe not everything we want to know, but what we need to know. And this kind of openness, embrace of this hard man means, I think, that God's ways are not our ways. God's thoughts are not our thoughts, not like our thoughts, and that God's way of dealing with the lost and the nearly lost is not like our normal way. We, being human beings, we are inclined toward the business of punishing sinners, but God is not, apparently. God is not in the business of punishing sinners. Not then, not now. God is in another business, which apparently is calling people like Zacchaeus, and of course then us too, since we are here today listening to this story, calling us to a new kind of life in spite of everything. that has gone before. But God is in the business of making all things new. As in, today is the first day of the rest of your life. Or another way to put it is God is not in the business of slashing and burning, but God is in the business of seeking and saving. And the fact that Zacchaeus did find a new way of living means as well, at least to me, something else. I think it means that at the core of everything that is, at the heart of the universe, at the source of everything, down at the bottom of everything, there is a mighty power, there is a living spirit, there is an invincible love that knows, and as impossible and inconceivable as it may be, that knows each of us by name, through and through. It knows each of us by name and that wills the best for us, all of us, the saints and the sinners alike, the good and bad of us all alike. And that power is able to turn our dark ways into beautiful, unexpected vistas. That power desires, as Jesus in this story, that power at the core of everything desires to come into our house, which is another way of saying to come into our heart, to make all things well for us in spite of everything. Our whole tradition is rooted in that one conviction. And the big issue then is whether or not, when that living spirit asks, as Julian Nort says, God is a courteous Lord and will not blow down the doors of your life. When that living spirit asks to be allowed entry into our house, the question is whether we are willing to open the door. And I trust that we are willing to open the door. So maybe this morning, instead of, dropping your service bulletin in the recycling bin as you go home, you might do something different this time. You might keep your service bulletin with you and keep that reading. Keep the reading from Luke's Gospel about Zacchaeus, and find some time away from the hustle and bustle today, some time to yourself where it's quiet, and read the story again and listen to it and see if you can imagine yourself into that story. See if you can see Zacchaeus, see if you can feel Zacchaeus, see if you can feel Jesus and that invincible power trying to enter Zacchaeus' life and then your life. And see if you can feel something change in your heart. See if you can feel some little shift in the way things are. Because if you do feel that, then you'll be experiencing something of what Zacchaeus himself experienced. You'll be experiencing, a different way of thinking about yourself, a different way of looking at life, and a different way of thinking about God. It's an interesting experiment to try, and I want to commend it to you this morning. So take it with you. Amen.